much more sophisticated. Please, the 6-year-olds can easily do this. There are 3 layers that we look at. We look at the political, i.e. put in the capitals and the names of the countries. We look at the geographical, which is, the names of the countries. So political is the capitals, geographical is the countries, and we also look at the geological, which is the rivers and the mountain ranges, and deserts, I think, as well, and also the seas. So there's a lot of work to be involved here. You get a set of flags that go with your map. So I've got Europe here. You pick up Europe, and there's a lot of flags here. You can sort just one set of colours. Just green. Tell me what the greens say. So the countries. The blues say what? Water features. Yellows say mountains. Whites say past cities, yes, and what else have we got? Do red ones say cities throughout? Okay, so there's a lot of information there. You can also explore flags. You can see in some 3 to 6 settings they have flags, and the parts of a flag gets to design flags, gets to understand the nature of flags and how divisive they are. Flags are about dividing, not uniting. The same about, did you see this operating? Pin map. So we're just looking at pin map. There's a whole flag study. Do you know that, as I was saying, flags are about dividing people. We are different to them. And you know that in a flag that there is so much history and culture. And if you look at the New Zealand flag, it's made up of the Union Jack. The Union Jack is made up of 3 different flags. There's a whole lot in there. Why we have 4 stars on our flags? Do you know? Why do we talk about New Zealand Guard Pacific's triple star? Does anyone know why we have triple star in our national anthem and quadruple star on our flag? Does anyone understand any of that? There needs to be a story told. Does everyone understand what the blue is all about? It always used to be blue. Why did this change from blue to red to blue? What is the history of our flag? And even just recently we've had whole flag discussion. So lots of deep history, nomenclature, timelines, stories, experiences, understanding Gaia, the whole deal. So what we'll do after, we'll just unpack all the questions. I'm going to go introduce these really quickly. Everyone's just going to choose one, work with it a little bit, and then show us how it works. Let's think about the question process. The aim was not to find an answer. And I think you've pretty quickly realised that it wasn't about answers. It was about more and more questions. That the process is one of self-discovery means, why am I asking these questions? What do I really want to know? What's the deep underlying meaning behind all of this? And the other thing that you'll be asking is, if I'm thinking this, who else has thought stuff around this? Are there any other definitions? Are there any other thought processes I can refer to, which is all research? That, by the way, if you're interested, could be your assignment, if that's what you chose. You could start your free research on whatever topic you're interested in, okay? Of course you can, it's a free research. It would be useful in terms of the constructs of the assignment if you referred to some form of Montessori thinking through that. It's a language assignment, but so is everything, so it really doesn't matter. It would make some sense to link it up to language, yeah? Even though, why I'm asking is the language I have to use. So, let's think about where you started on the question game. We did the very simple question game. Who is it that talks? Who is it that... That's the early question game, and it keeps on developing all the way through, so the children are always asking questions. We've just had, for many of you, as a philosophical statement, actually. I think we went into philosophy for most of you. Anyone like to share their journey?
I'll start. Do you want me to go through each step that I went through, or just the beginning and the end?
Illustrate, just tell us a story about the journey you've been on.
Well, I first started with the question of why do we have organs that we don't particularly need?
Why do we have?
Organs that
Organs.
we don't need.
Okay.
And then I went on the step of like, if we can live without one of like a pair or half of something, or without it at all, why are they there? And then what are they used for?
Men have nipples, for example.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, just like weird thing. And what are they used for? And did we need them once? like once upon a time, evolution, what were they used for back then, all that. And then I went into the thing of medical advances, the ability to help others. So a kidney transplant, you can help other people. And then why do some people's organs fail and or need to be taken out, like appendix or tonsils? Like why do some people's not work and other people do? And then
And in fact, that tag question is really important. Not necessarily why doesn't it work, but look at the question is why does it work?
yeah,
That's enormous. And I just would pick up that because in education we often look at why doesn't it work, why doesn't it work? What if we asked, hey, well, this child's learning, what's happening? Rather than this child's not learning, what's happening? We often look to pathology, whereas actually we could look at positive experiences.
yeah. And then I went on to like how do actual transplants work?
Mm-hmm.
Like how does it compatible and all that. And then my final one was what drives us to find the answer or fix what is broken.
Nice. How does it feel as a process?
Good.
Yeah? Was it
Yeah.
quite exhilarating on the way through and thinking, wow, there's all these fields of knowledge?
Yeah.
And if we had to link them into jobs, who were we playing the job game with? All the jobs. Janet, I think. She was struggling a little bit with the timeline, and she said, I can't see anything that was interesting here. I said, okay, go through the alphabet and list all the jobs and see if you can.
Oh, you did
come
that
up
with me.
With you, is
Yeah.
it? Yeah. A was anthropology, and then you went home, and I think you added a whole lot, hey?
I did actually. Oh, A was archaeology, so finding the origin.
Yeah.
So we talked about the etymology dictionary. B was botany. What did they eat? Where did
Off
the
we go.
plants
And then you
come
went through the
from?
whole
Yeah.
alphabet, yeah. So quite useful if you looked through yours, how many fields of study you would have gone through, all the way from organs, which is probably to do something to do with medicine, but something to do with human function. I mean, we can digest meat. Does that mean we should? I mean, our system can do it. It's not. Some people would argue it's not designed to. Who knows what design? You know, the idea of design. That were humans designed, or just a series of accidents, etc., etc. So you're going to go through philosophy. You've got a lot of anthropology coming through. You're going to look at nutrition. You're going to probably look at anatomy, physiology. You've got some chemistry, biochemistry happening in there. You could imagine if we had to cut it up into little boxes, we would, but we lose it if we cut it into boxes. It's cool to go, I've got all these questions, away we go. Yes? The expert is often boxed in. Like I'm an expert in botany. I don't ask questions about chemistry, I'm a botanist, you know, and you actually want to supersede all of those lines. Cool. Nice. Anyone else would like to explore their journey with us?
Mine went on a personal journey,
Nice.
which was interesting. So my original question is what happened to my curiosity, and then so questions come into, you know, what are curiosities and what's the meaning of the etymology dictionary, what would it mean, curiosity, and you know, just all those sort of things, and how could I measure curiosity, those sort of questions. But then I sort of thought, well, why am I actually asking this question? What am I wanting to know? And really what it was, I don't like it, but it was, you know, what's wrong with me? How can I fix it? I should have better curiosity, and I should be. So that's what, and so then it was more a feeling in my body, and it was sort of like I feel it sort of me fighting against myself. So I just went into that and just looked at what those feelings were and fears and all that, and then just thought, well, what if I just loved that fear and just and so so it went in that
What
way.
if I love that fear? It's a lovely question.
And that, in the movie, so. But it was just sort of gone the whole circle and just I don't have to fight it, I don't have to fix it. It just is, and things will be just as they are, and just meet life as it comes.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And is there such a thing as good curiosity? Is there a good level? When you know you're at a good level of curiosity? If you see yourself as a deficient some way in curiosity, then is there an optimum state? How many questions should I ask? Nice. So that pretty quickly these questions turn themselves inside out, isn't it? It's not like you're looking at that; it becomes it looking at you. Yeah. And that's really important that you allow children to go through that process. If a child says to you, what sort of life lived in this shell, then you can very quickly help the child to understand, well, what sort of life are you? You know, what shell do you live in? And that was the prison example. Would you like to talk about where you ended up, or the pathway you're on?
Yeah, sure. So I started out with what what don't I know, and I was getting really confused. And went to, how do I know what I don't know if I don't know it? And kept going to why do I care about what I don't know? Do I care about what I don't know or what I do know? And what one am I wanting to find out?
Yep.
And I thought about how can I define knowing something? And is it knowing it exists or knowing about it? And then how do I know that what I think I know is actually right? It's actually the truth. But then if there's no truth, then is it the truth, you know? And then I went to how can I find out about things I don't know if I don't necessarily know that they exist? Which brought to the story Stephen said about if someone is in a prison, and just in a box their whole life, and they've never seen anything, they've never had any clues of the outside world. Is there anything outside there to him? If there's someone in this box, they've never seen or heard of anything, they know there's anything further. And then those walls are just barriers to the knowledge of what's outside. And there can be clues, like you might hear something outside the walls, like, oh, there's actually something on the other side of these walls. And so that led me to what are the barriers to my knowledge, and how can I overcome those barriers?
Pretty cool stuff, eh?
Kind of.
Kind of means what?
Involving a lot of thought, and it's frustrating because I don't think that I'll ever have the answers to it. There'll just be more questions, which is okay to have more questions, but it's frustrating knowing that there won't be an answer.
So how is that different to not having the questions? So your frustration was, I'll never know all the answers. Yours is, I don't have enough questions. And so, yeah, you're right. The more questions, there aren't more answers. It's just more questions. And that's cool. How much is enough? How many questions? It's not going to be a satisfying process having more questions because there'll just be more things you don't know the answer to.
I have a lot of questions.
Good. Really interesting. Two different perspectives. Actually, two sides of the same coin, isn't it?
But also, it goes into is it that I won't have the answer to these questions because I don't have the right questions to find answers to?
So now you put in the whole idea of right questions, and away you go.
And then it's,
Krishnamurti, somebody you want to read.
yeah.
Do both of your, perhaps all three of your contributions so far actually point to, am I inadequate? Or am I adequate as a human? Am I okay?
I don't know if delicious or so much.
Did
I
it?
guess I wanted to know.
Because?
I don't know.
I can see how that
Something
could be.
with it.
I can see the link because
I
of
can
the
see-
physical.
Well, I have both my tonsils and my appendix out. So, like, why did I have them to start with if I don't have them now?
You didn't need them.
So there's a lot of sense of self coming through. And if you look back at your cosmic education definitions, day one, you all talked about sense of self. This is what we're talking about. From an adult perspective, yeah, it's slightly different with children. But it's a sense of self. We have, and Jenny pointed to it slightly before, an enduring sense of self, a more enduring. She said that because she was older, she'd lugged around baggage longer, as if that was an excuse.
I have more baggage.
Yeah, I have more baggage, but actually that in itself is a bit of a myth. You can have no baggage, and some children have a lot of baggage, but we tend to think long time equals long baggage, which is not a very clever way of thinking about the development of humans, but we do adopt that quite quickly. Are there any other comments or contributions people would like to make?
My question is from the video yesterday that I watched as well. It starts as, what is my bliss? And my bliss is what makes me me kind of thing, what makes me happy, what do I want to do? And so I started with what do I like to do, And then I thought deeper in why do I like to do these things, and what do I get from doing these things? And then I started to think, what do other people get from me doing these things? And, you know, what do they get, or what do they learn? And then it stemmed down from why am I afraid to face myself, and how can I uncover my golden self? And then how can I identify my concrete layers so that I can uncover my golden self? And why does it matter? And then why do I matter? And then who decides if I matter? And then why should I care?
Nice. So a whole lot of those thoughts are all really rich, aren't they? And you'll go back to your first question, which is what?
What is my bliss?
What is my bliss down to why should I care? So it tells us a lot about self. Like self is very evident in that particular one, but this idea of are we good enough actually drives humans a lot. This aching sense of slight inadequacy, of not being all that we perhaps could have been, which is a message of perfection that comes through, let's say through Disney or through judgment or comparisons. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Just your face, because you're like Disney and you're like, me?
Well, I think that does. Even though we think of them as just silly cartoons, they actually totally speak to our subconscious. And I mean, that's how they're designed to. They're absolutely a psychological manipulation of children's psyche. Full stop. Unashamedly. We want children to think this. But there's a downside of thinking that the world is perfect and beautiful and nice, because it isn't. And so, yeah, and then that tear when we realise that we're not part of one of the suggestions about why New Zealand has one of the highest suicide rates in the world is because we see everybody else on TV as having an amazing life, and then people say, well, I don't have that life, therefore I'm lesser somehow. And that's as subtle as it is. Expectations are really, really difficult. I wonder how you will manage the expectations of perfection in your class. How you will help children to know that being okay is okay. Because most of us as adults don't have that understanding. We can't be as enlightened as the kids coming through behind us are going to be, because I grew up in a estate system, right? If these guys have an opportunity to grow up in a Montessori system, the next generation, the ones that they help, will be in a much, much better situation, I believe, that it can work like that. Anyone else who'd like to share?
I did mine completely different to everybody else.
Cool.
Why am I not allowed to have a dog? I was waiting for like a look, like, why'd you do that? So I did a mind map, and I started off with like basic things, so like the needs of the dog. I have to get puppy training, and then I looked into like the environment the dog needs. Will he or she be able to run around? If the grass gets muddy, will this affect the dog? So the environment plays a big part. And then I need a fence, because our fence is broken. So how much will it be to build a fence? Do I need consent to build a fence? How do I know to even build a fence? And then do I get a puppy from SPCA? Why SPCA? Am I just trying to be a good person, so I adopt a puppy from SPCA? And then I thought, well, I always wanted a pretty dog. Is that a vain judgment, or am I just trying to please somebody else? And then I was thinking about, am I just wanting a dog for me, or are there other reasons? Why do I want a dog? What benefits the dog? Is it just for me, or do I benefit the dog as well? So yeah,
Nice.
it went in quite in depth.
Would you be happy with that sort of level of thinking in the children in your class if you were invited that? That's really exciting thinking. That's the aim. You want to free them up from all this other adult stuff, from all the structures and all the rules, in order for them to get to this free flow thinking. Because thinking is a nice activity we like doing. Did you enjoy the process?
Yes, but I still don't know if
Nice.
I'm allowed a dog or not.
Allowed. You know, teachers make up rules all the time. We say you're not allowed to sit
Say
there.
you're not allowed.
Well, actually, no, there's no rules. You just made that
It's
up
not my
because you
house.
don't want me to sit there. I don't want you to
Yeah.
sit there better, but you're not allowed to. It sounds like there's a set of permissions that the teacher has and is able to distribute. There's a lot of weirdness there. Nice. Go the dog. You really, for me, you opened up the dog point of view, and I thought that was really useful. owning two perspectives shows that maturity. Do you remember that deceptions that were asked later when you can actually think about, I want this, but actually it's not the best thing? I.e. it doesn't serve the greater universe. What I want, how does that serve others? That depth of thinking is really mature thinking when you can think about two things at once. You know, okay, dial up your mother in your mind. You've all got mum in there, pop her in there. Think of something that she's quite passionate about. Could be quite easy for most of us, passionate parents. And now try to argue with her which statements are going to work. You already know which statements, which sorts of things are going to work. You would know that how to antagonise her, for example. You know this down pat. You're an artist at this. You could push her over if you wanted to. You could hold her steady. You absolutely know how to manipulate your mother. That's successful childhood. Now change in your head that she's feeling really down. She's down for whatever reason. There's no energy. You're not getting the expected responses. What are your responses? Notice how you've changed. What's changed in what you talk about and how you talk about it. Okay? This level of logic that we're talking about now is called abstract reasoning. You take a concept and you can manipulate it in your head. You can make mum strong. You can make mum in a more vulnerable place. You can change her around any way you want to, just by thinking it through. Piaget develops levels of consciousness. Kohlberg talks about levels of moral reasoning. I'm not saying follow those, although of course Piaget followed them, sorry, it's ridiculous. But understand that this moral reasoning, this idea of abstract understanding, where you can take a concept and you can flick it around just like that in your head, is quite advanced thinking. And we want to give children that opportunity to be able to do that. Take something, know it really well, and manipulate it. Take mum again, now put her into a really good space. What's a really good space? Just imagine her, she's really where she wants to be, doing what she wants to do. What sort of energies is she getting? So you've just taken an abstract concept called mum, and you've put her into different frameworks. And we can do this all the time. The better and more conscious we are at dealing with these abstract visions and icons, then the more we are able to see our own impact on it. If somebody's shouting at you, just need to go to that space and say, wow, what would it take for me to be shouting at somebody? This person's really aggravated. I can see. Yes, it'll hack them off at the first step. And the first time you do it, it really drives people nuts. But as you train them to say, hey, this is who I am and this is how I process, they'll get there. But imagine if somebody's coming at you and just say, wow, have you eaten? Because I would go off somebody off like that, not me personally, but I can imagine for you to go off like this, you haven't eaten. Would you like a cup of tea? Wow, how does that change the dynamic? And then you're not engaged with the pettiness of the emotion. You can go deep into the cause, which is part of what we need to do. Which is good. If you're knowing smiles, I think people understand what I'm talking about when we can do that equally. If somebody, unrequited love, somebody's sharing their love with you and you're like, not really, thanks very much. How do you deal with that? What situation do you get in, and how do you process unrequited love when you just don't feel that way about somebody? It's a really hard one to learn. I think both my sons stuffed up. Both of them had 2-year relationships because they didn't want to hurt the person they're going out with, whereas actually 3 months would have been fine. Both of them fell out of love quite quickly and then, don't want to hurt this person. Both of them did, to their credit, tried to say, I think we're breaking up. But unfortunately, or fortunately, they were too kind when the girl said, but I don't want to break up. Gosh, no. Anyway, it's one of those things you have to learn. Yeah, I think maybe people have been in that situation of unrequited love.